Greetings, Shapers. Greetings, Tauva. Do we have a special video for you today? So, recently I decided to put down the gun and bring the blade. I went to a GT, which was held in Hull by the lovely guys that run the events over at Carnage. And what an event it was. It was quite a crazy meta. Nobody really had a clue on what was kind of going to go on, what lists were going to kind of pop up, and there were some wacky ones. And obviously orcs were out in full force. We had a lot of Tau, T-Sons, and everybody had kind of teched for Horde, and there was like Bully Boys detachments, there was loads. So this mad guy over here decided, you know what, time to take the Kroot out for a spin. And it's fair to say, I did quite well. Considering that I'm used to taking all the guns, I decided to take all the Kroot. So, the list that I took was the Kroot Hunting Pack. And the key thing about the Kroot Hunting Pack is that it's got a couple of unique rules. One of them being the Hunter's Instinct. So each time a Kroot model from your army makes an attack, add 1 to the hit roll if the target of that attack is below its starting strength, and add 1 to the wound roll as well if the target of that attack is below half strength. So at first I was thinking, okay, that could be quite good in combat. The shooting of the Kroot detachment actually surprised me, because when you start to stack these buffs of +1 to hit and potentially +1 to wound, it becomes quite respectable. The other part of the Kroot Hunting Pack is obviously skirmish fighters, so they get a 6+ invulnerable save against melee and a 5+ invulnerable save against ranged attacks. So, I'll run you through the list. What I ended up taking from the characters was I took a lone spear and I gave him the javelins. So, D6 blast, strength 10, AP 2 damage. The damage is cute, but it was mainly for its ability that gives you full rerolls to hit against that target. So most of the time I was using the lone spear just to throw a javelin, then fire and fade because it's got a built-in fire and fade, and then any Kroot that target that for shooting and or combat, I get full rerolls. So I was like, that's nice. I gave him the Kroot Hawk Flock, which basically means that it can't be targeted by anything. Basically it stops people from setting up reinforcements within 12, so he's lone op, so it basically becomes untargetable. And he has the ignores cover rule, which actually, to be fair, I think I forgot about that in a few games. So it's just a nice little enhancement. So then, because there's going to be a lot of deep strikes coming at me, especially with Grey Knights and Orcs potentially doing the jump, I put in your boy Darkstrider as well, so I have 2 forms of no setups within 12. Then I also went with a Trail Shaper, and I gave him the Nomadic Hunter. So this is key to the kind of success of the list, because it gives a Kroot unit an extra 3-inch move. So effectively they become movement 10 rather than movement 7. It gives them the assault ability, so the assault keyword, which is quite nice if you're trying to do actions, but for me it was mainly for that +3 move. So if you think about going first, you can scout move 7 and then move 10, so that's 17 inches from your deployment line, and then you could potentially do a charge. So I had that in my head and I thought, okay, cool, I've got this kind of aggressive unit that I could use, how can I make it more efficient? So then I took the Flesh Shaper, so he gives the unit crits on 6s, so sustained hits in combat, and he gives the unit a 6-up feel no pain. So I took the enhancement, the Borthrod Gland, which gives him basically critical hits on 5+s. So that unit is doing sustained hits 1 in combat of 5s and 6s. And remember what I said about the Lone Spear giving you full rerolls to hit. So picture this, a unit of 20 Kroots. If you have made them below starting strength, you're going to be hitting on 2s in combat with full rerolls, so you will just reroll anything that's not a 5 or a 6 to get as many attacks through as possible. Then the Flesh Terror has, the Kroot Flesh Shaper has an extra ability, which is giving the unit a 6+ feel no pain, but if you kill something, it triggers a 5+ feel no pain for the rest of the game. So I put those 2 characters of the Nomadic Hunter plus the Flesh Shaper in that unit, so they can just go full send, kill something, and then sit there and go, well, I've got a 5+ feel no pain, 5+ invulnerable save versus shooting, and a 6+ invulnerable save in combat. And also I'm stealth from shooting, so that unit can be incredibly oppressive, especially for hunting down little small units. Now, I wanted another Trail Shaper because they also give you reactive moves. So I have 2 Trail Shapers and I had 2 Flesh Terrors, or Flesh Shapers. I keep calling them Flesh Terrors, but the Flesh Shapers. So then I've got 2 bricks of 20 Kroot that are basically both having a 6+ feel no pain, and then both potentially can trigger into a 5+ feel no pain, and then also have reactive moves when they get within 9 of D6 inches. And obviously one unit can move 10, the other unit moves standard 7. So that was a really nice tech piece just to kind of really bank on those abilities that I've mentioned and get maximum value. So then in my characters then I've got Dark Strider, I've got 2 Flesh Shapers, 2 Trail Shapers, and then obviously I've got the Lone Spear. So then in the battle line I've got 2 units of 20 Kroot, and I kit them out with the Tangle Bomb guns because they're actually pretty good. D3 Blast, Strength 5, no AP, 1 damage, adds up, and then I give them the Kroot Carbine, which for some reason is damage 2. I'll take it. So then I had 2 units of standard Kroot of just 10, with the the upgrades like the Kroot Carbine and the Tangle Bomb Launcher. And then I had a unit of 5 Kroot Hounds. And then I had a unit of Farstalkers with the Dogvrite Skinner, so the Flamer, the Petra, the bird, and obviously it comes with its stock 2 hounds, and I give it the Tau Pulse Rifle, because why would you not? It's just a free upgrade, and it's a stronger gun. So the weakness of the Kroot detachment is that it can't deal with heavy armor, whether that be dealing with tanks or whether that dealing with 2+ save elite units like Terminators as a prime example. So I wanted to bring in self-sufficient guns like from the Tau side, from the shooting side. So I went with 2 Riptides with the iron accelerators, kit them out with the smart missile systems and obviously the stock missile drones. And then that kind of was my, okay, well, I'm going to be able to deal with elite units. And then I thought about the tanks. So I wanted to bring in some hammerheads. So I brought in the basic 2 hammerheads with the rail guns. And they come with obviously the 2 seeker missiles and the smart missile systems that I put on them. So that's your, anti-elite, 2 Riptides, and anti-tank, 2 hammerheads. So obviously we need spotters. We need the observers. So I ended up taking 2 units of Pathfinders, and those Pathfinders were armed with your typical 3 iron rifles, a gun drone for advancing and doing actions, and a recon drone on one of them, and a grav inhibitor drone on the other to give you a -2 to charge. So I had my spotters there, and that pretty much rounded out the list. So really well kind of like designed in terms of dealing with the weakness of the Kroot detachment, whilst also having enough bodies on the board to play the mission. So obviously I went in there with a fixed secondary mindset to do cleanse and deploy teleport homers. And there's a couple of really interesting things that I discovered with using like hounds, for example. So obviously all the Kroot now are on bigger bases, the same with the hounds. And the hounds now come in units of 5. Now the hounds are OC 0, but when they're within 12 of a Kroot character, they become OC 1, and it's not wholly within, it's just within 12. So I found, like, when I was practicing my deployment and stuff, that you can actually fit a unit of hounds with 5 models, and you can spread them across 2 objectives. So usually they wouldn't be able to do, actions and actions like cleanse. They'd be able to do deploy teleport homers, but because they're OC1, I could literally put a unit of hounds over 2 objectives and be like, perfect, right, cleanse for a 40-point unit being sent out, and do me what? I put something in the centre for homers, I get 3 points. I do 1 unit of hounds for cleanse. That's 7 points on secondaries done with minimal investment. So I really liked hounds, especially when they're set up within range of the characters, which, to be fair, you're always going to be. So the list had lots of little tricks and lots of little kind of like designs within the list, and it's fair to say that over this tournament I didn't have an easy run. I played some brutal armies that are very teched to deal with Horde, and obviously could chew through Kroot. So when you look at the stratagems, and I'm not going to kind of go into too much detail here because you all should know by now that one of the main stratagems is the join the hunt. So bringing back a unit for 2 CP. So when a unit of Kroot dies, you bring back the unit. Something to note on this, the reason I didn't take War Shapers was because, yes, there's talks of being able to do it for free, but I expected it to be FAQ'd. You have to think about how that works. So essentially, without going into detail, they'd have to kill the unit and not the Shaper, and then you use that to bring it back. So I didn't want to use it because I just thought there's too many caveats for it working, and it's prime time for it to get FAQ'd and say no. But we won't really kind of like focus on that because that's not the point of this call. So that's why I didn't take it for any of you that are kind of questioning why I didn't. So the other stratagem that I ended up not using very often because I was so CP constrained, because I was doing fixed, was Guerrilla Warriors or the Hidden Hunters. So Guerrilla Warriors is a situational thing where you can basically fall back, shoot and charge, which is great for actions. I think I did it a couple of times, but I was finding myself using that in the later stages of the game when I didn't need to bring back Kroot. But the other one is the Hidden Hunters. Effectively, you make 1 Kroot unit from your army lone operative, which is extremely powerful, especially when you're putting a lot of OC on objectives. And remembering that Kroot have sticky objectives in their OC too. So you can really utilise that within the Kroot detachment just to help win on primaries. Now, there is a natural evolution to the list, which I'll go through after I've gone through the event. And I'm definitely going to be putting in things like ethereals, or an ethereal, to help with that kind of CP train. So the main stratagems that you kind of want to really use is the bringing back a unit, the Guerrilla Warriors, and the Hidden Hunters. The rest of the stuff is situational. A trap well laid is a little bit tricky to pull off because people can interrupt you. And the reason the trap well laid is difficult is because you have to attack a unit first with another unit of Kroot, and then what they'll do is they'll interrupt, kill or damage the other unit, and therefore you're doing all of that just to get an extra AP, and I found that I didn't need it. So main stratagems that you want to put in your Kroot toolbox is the Hidden Hunters, Guerrilla Warriors, and the Join the Hunt. So, let's talk about the event. So my first round was against Black Templars list, and it was literally called Tanks. It had a unit of 10 Assault Intercessors with the Lieutenant guy with the Flesh is Weak, had the Tech Marines, you had a Land Raider Redeemer, 2 of the tanks that have got loads of the shots, and then an Impulsor with Eliminators, and loads of little small units like Eliminators, 5 Assault Intercessors, 5 Infiltrators, and various units. So the basic game plan, and I was using UKTC for those people that are wondering which event I was at and what terrain format. So Dawn of War, and it was priority, Dawn of War and priority targets, I think. Yeah, priority targets. So I ended up going first, and what I basically did was have my infiltrating units of Farstalkers block out his scouting ability, his infiltrating ability, and then decided to redeploy him outside of the Land Raider Redeemer's threat range, because obviously that thing will just burn them. and redeployed it to safety away from the Land Raider Redeemer, and then moved it up one flank, or could have done deployed teleport armors in the DZ, but ended up just charging loads of tanks and keeping them hemmed in. Because my hammerheads went out to kill the Land Raider Redeemer, which they did, and then I was like, right, perfect, I don't have to worry about being overwatched and flamed. Nobody likes losing a unit of Kroot to the Redeemer. And then the rest of that was just setting up, doing my cleanse, doing my homers, pushing up into a terrain piece on objective and going, okay, well, I'm controlling the board. So you hear me talk about board control, and I've done it with videos like my Darkstrider Grundy maneuver. This army can just, it's like doing that on crack. Everything's got scout moves, it can be really oppressive and really, really strong when controlling the board. So that game ended in a 97-37 victory, because he simply could not leave the mid-board. One key moment was when he did lose the Land Raider Redeemer and the guys got out. He went forward to position behind a piece of terrain in the centre of the board, but then because I'd pushed up with my Kroot units, I could then retaliate. So I screened with one and then went to deal with something else, and then from that point I kind of focus fired them down, and actually the Kroot did most of the shooting damage, and then charged them, got the 5-up Feel No Pain, and then I had a big unit of Kroot in the mid-board threatening the enemy's deployment objective. And then from that point, it was just game, set, and match. There was no way he could out-OC me on objectives, and there was no way he could kill that many Kroot when the tanks were being pressured by my Hammerheads and Riptides. So from that point, it was a solid victory for the Kroot, and off to round 2. Now, round 2 was a really weird AdMech list that had, give or take, it was like 16 to 18 Castellan robots, and it was on Search and Destroy, and the mission was Take and Hold, so maximum of, obviously, 15 points available to you in each turn, no endgame scoring. So, I went first on this one, and basically just blocked with Farstalkers, and got homers, and then blocked all the robots into the DZ. He had to deploy all the robots on the line. He had loads of Scutari, kind of like infantry dudes, loads of like Belisarius Call, Castellan robots with characters, and an anti-tank vehicle, and some other stuff. So I put them in Kroot jail, and you'll hear me say a lot, I was going for putting people in Kroot jail, and that's exactly what happened. And one thing I will say is that I've never, in my 40k career, easily scored 15 on the primary every turn. So it was 15, 15, 15, and 15. The key things here to kind of advise you on is that with your scout moves, and when you block, you've got basically free reign. So I was using units of 10 Kroot to kind of scout moves, make something sticky. And on Search and Destroy, you've got your centre objective in the middle, and then your home field. A unit of 10 Kroot can be deployed on the line, scout move just to touch the centre objective and your home field, and therefore you just made 2 of those objectives sticky, and then you can run away, so you don't really lose a resource. You just go, that's now mine. If you want to come and deal with it, you have to come and put something on the objective, and therefore my Tau guns get to shoot you. Now, because I blocked him in and baited his overwatch, the Kroot Hounds had stopped the units of Castellan robots that could have gone onto the objective, and then my Tau unit shot into the Castellan robots that were visible, because he had to deploy them on the line. So that unit went away, the unit of 4. I think he had a character left alive, but he lost 4 Castellan robots, and he still had the 2 big units there. And then I just carried on blocking them. And the clever thing that I did was I set up this big unit that went to go and charge some infantry guys that were pushing to try and take me off objectives, and then when they revealed themselves, I just moved 10 inches and charged. So basically killed them, and then had a 5-up Feel No Pain. And then when he did the same on the other flank, I did the same with the other big unit and killed them. So I had 2 big blobs of Kroot on both flanks with 5-up Feel No Pains. And then when he moved in his Castellan robots to shoot me, he moved Belisarius Call within 9, and I said to him, I was like, okay, I'm going to reactive move. And he said, oh, okay, I thought the other unit had that. I said, no, they both did, like I said at the beginning. And he was like, oh, that's massive. I went, it is. I said, but to be fair, look, I want to have a fun game. So on a 1 to 3, I rolled the dice. On a 1 to 3, he could move it back. On a 4, 5, or 6, because it was a tactical error on his behalf. And he did say, yeah, it's my bad. And I rolled the dice and it went in my favour. So I just reactive moved behind the terrain, and therefore his big unit robots couldn't shoot me. And that was game, set, and match. So that was 98 to 47. Again, I did cleanse and homers. I got 20 on cleanse and 18 on homers. So 4 at the beginning, 2 3s and 2 4s on the later stage of the game. Then it's off to round 3. Now, Craig, he plays for Carnage, and he is an amazing Black Templars player. I've played him before, very technical, very clever with his tactics, and me and him always have a phenomenal game. So, Craig, if you do end up watching this video, hats off to you, bro. I always enjoy our games, and I can't wait to play you again. Now, he was taking Black Templars Crusade Horde, so big blobs of Crusaders, and with Fight First and various other things, and he had loads of pressure pieces, he had loads of trading pieces, he had a couple of tanks to keep me honest, and he could just play that game where we can just trade resources, and I can't really charge him, because if I do, I just get murdered first. So this game was purely about positioning and setting up, and we were playing on sweeping engagement, and we were also playing the mission Purge the Foe, so hold one, hold more, kill more. He went first, so he was able to get into position, and then effectively all we were doing was trading. It was mental. I can't even describe all of the things that happened, but let me tell you one thing that did happen was near the middle of the game when he pushed everything, I'd had my Kroot revealed so that he had to trigger my reactive moves. And then all I ended up doing with this big unit of Kroot was using the reactive move to push them out in such a weird way that all the Kroot were like conga-lined everywhere to give him multiple activations and block him from getting further up the field. And then obviously he wiped out the unit because it's, you know, Crusader brick. But he dealt with that like a boss, and we were like looking at each other being like, this hasn't happened ever. And he was like, no, but I think I dealt with it quite well. I went, no, honestly, you really have. Any other opponent would have been like, I don't know which to attack first, what to do, I could pull away, etc, etc. So that game was super close. It ended 96 to me and 83 to him. A couple of swinging moments was being able to bring back units and just keep hitting him with shooting after shooting after shooting. And Kroot shooting, when you factor in the +1 to hit and +1 to wound, it did so much work. There was one point where my breachers shot a Crusader brick and killed that dude and a half. But then the Kroot shooting in killed like 8 dudes, 9 dudes. I was like, Kroot were like, right, Talvar, let me show you how it's done. Alright, let the Shaper command. So, primaries, neither of us got anything. He didn't get anything on turn 1, and I think going second for me really helped because I was able to get kill 1, kill more. And then obviously I got hold 1, kill 1, hold 1, kill 1, then hold 1, hold more. Sorry, yeah, hold 1, hold more, kill. And the same on turn 5. So I got 48 out of 50 on primaries. He got 40 out of 50. He took tactical and he got 33 out of 40. And I got 38 on secondaries, aka max on cleanse, and then 18 on homers. We did talk after the game, and I think that when we were having a beer and just chatting about how that game could have gone, if he'd have copied me on cleanse and homers, I think it would have been like a point or two in it. It would have all come down to who goes second. Really enjoyed that game. So then the next game I had on the day 2 was against T-Suns. Now, T-Suns are a natural counter because they've got all the flamers everywhere. And what ended up happening, basically, I reflected on the game afterwards. I lost this one. It was 74 to his 83. But I made one error, and that one error cost me the game. Now, I went first, blocked him in. It was obviously sweeping engagement again, and I think this one, it was Scorched Earth. So just maximum 10 primaries, and then you burn an objective in no man's land or the enemy one in their deployment zone, and you get extra 5 points for the no man's land and 10 points if you burn the home field. Never usually going to happen. If it does, you already win the game. But the mistake I made was I actually did my homers on their deployment line, but then I didn't push out a unit to screen the midboard, and I had obviously Darkstride and the Lone Spear blocking out areas of 12. If I'd have done that, I could have literally just kept them in their deployment zone for 3 turns. But I was very fearful of Magnus, and I think that's what cost me the game. So lessons learned on that one. But it was a respectable loss. I mean, only by what, 9 points. So I think a couple of decisions could have won me that game. So even though people might be thinking T-Suns is a natural counter, there are still ways that you can win that game. So, I thought, right, God, my God, this has been a difficult run. I've gone against tanks, I've gone against, massive 2-up save robots with Feel No Pain. Then I've gone into Crusader Bricks. What's next? And now T-Suns. What's next? Wolf Jail. I got round 5 going into Joe, who runs the Carnage event, with his 15 Thunderwolf Cavalry or 18 Thunderwolf Cavalry with Santa on his sled and Wolfen and Scouts and a couple of vehicles to keep me honest. And I was like, oh, this is going to be so difficult. And it was really difficult. Reactive moves all over the place. And for those of you who haven't played against Space Wolves, they've got a reactive move if you go within 9. And then if you shoot them, they can go 6 and go into engagement range. So I can't exactly get the optimal shooting off, because if I'm close enough, he'll just tag me and then I can't shoot them. So that was an absolute, it put me in mind prison. I was like, oh my God, I got to think about this. And the one thing about this game was I was hoping to get win the roll-off for who goes the attacker or defender. And I lost it. So he just puts Scouts and blocks the mid-board to give his Thunderwolf Cavalry the option just to yeet up the board and go and charge me. And then he also goes first. I'm thinking, oh, right, this is going to be huge. So a couple of things that got me out of Wolf Jail and put him in Kroot Jail was being smart with my Kroot unit and actually not shooting one Thunderwolf Cavalry and locking them in, so using the movement 10 unit just to kind of wrap him so he can't do his reactive move. I'm not charging, I'll just stand there and wait for the inevitable death of these Kroot, which is fine. I just bring them back for 2 CP. Yeah, I lose my characters, but I've stopped the other Thunderwolf Cavalry unit from getting to where they need to be, and then focus down one Thunderwolf unit at a time. So the unit that pushed up in the first turn with the Santa dude on his sled, I just moved everything out of reactive moves and then just shot everything I could. I went tactical on this mission because it was taken hold, but it was hidden supplies, so there was 4 objectives in the middle. So tactical is just really easy to do. Now in this game, I ended up sacrificing primary points to stay outside of Wolf Jail, but inevitably he ran out of steam. And I ended up getting 5 on primary, 5 on primary, 5 on primary, then 15 at the end, because I went second. And he got 10 on primary, then 5, then 10, then 5. But I will say one thing about Joe is he held it quite well, but his tactical cards were really ruining him, really bad. He got 25 out of 40 because the ones he was getting he just couldn't score, despite him trying to tactfully go for them. So I ended up getting 39 out of 40 on secondaries and 30 on primaries, so it was 79 to his 65. So overall, a really, really, really good run with the Kroot. Really enjoyed using them. Really refreshing, because if you are thinking about playing them, or you're maybe just, I don't know, let's just say it as it is. Maybe you need to get better at screens. Maybe you're struggling with the combat phase or understanding it, and you're getting caught out as a Tau player. I would really recommend you to even practice with this, whether it be on TTS or whether it be in actual real game, because it teaches you a lot about the phases that you usually ignore as a Tau player. So for me, I wanted to be challenged, and I don't mean that in terms of an egotistical way, because Tau are still challenging me when I'm trying to build Montcar builds and the Retcad and Kion builds, but this offered a brand new fresh perspective of how to play this army. And you can still take self-sufficient units of the Tau side of things into the Kroot detachment to help give you a balanced list. So I really enjoyed it, and I would really recommend it to anybody. And obviously, selfless plug, if you want to learn more, I do plenty of videos on the Kroot detachment, plus lots of the others in my Discord. And if you are interested, please check out the link below and join. Fantastic community, fantastic kind of content. So what more could you ask for? So I'm just going to kind of go over to the chat, because I have been obviously going through a few other things, so I just want to just double check if I've not missed anything. I'll get to these nuts in a second, and I'll also go through some of the changes I'm going to make to the list and some of the things that you can really combine in the Kroot detachment. I think there's a good thing about the Assassinate. So, T-Sons took Assassinate against me. But with the reactive moves and the various things you can do, you can actually kind of play around that, and then they're forced to come at you, and they've got to get through all of the screens just to get to your characters. So it can be a trap for an opponent to go Assassinate, and obviously I had a lot of characters to tempt them. I had, 5 Kroot characters and Darkstrider. So that's enough characters for them to be incentivized to try and kill them. And I was already considering that actually I might lose Darkstrider and I might lose 2 characters. So that's 12. But that's not enough to get you over the line. You need to be getting those 16s to 20 on a secondary to really kind of win like events or win games when it becomes an issue scoring primary, because the Kroot army can put you in jail, Kroot jail, chicken jail, and rack up the points on primaries. So a lot of feedback with people trying out the Kroot list, and they said like, oh well, when I use it, I'm just losing too much too quickly, and it's just all getting ruined and removed. The trick is not to play Kion style really with Kroot. Don't reveal stuff if you don't need to. Only reveal piecemeal and piecemeal, because every time you kill a Kroot unit, it's blocked you, you kill it. So first turn, for example, put a Farstalk unit and block them off. Their turn, you have 2 CP, they kill it, they go away, and they come back again. Simple as that. So always keeping 2 CP in your pocket. Right, so let's talk about some of the changes. So I mentioned before that I was running short on CP. I would have liked a couple of CP here and there. I enjoyed it when I was playing tactical, because obviously I could ditch a card and get a CP that way. But I wanted to still stick with the fixed secondaries and get a CP. So the only way of viably doing that is an Ethereal. Now I know it's on a 50-50, but it's still better than nothing. And I found that in the first couple of turns, it's just regen a unit. But what I was wanting to do was push out a big blob of Kroot and loan up them and still be on the objective. So that one turn that I get that 4+ on the CP from the Ethereal, bam, I can do both. I can regen a unit for 2 CP and I can obviously loan up. So that's the thought process going forward, is that whether I take 1 or 2 all depends on the list. But you can take 1 to 2 Ethereals. I still think 1, and then with the option of going tactical, but again, it all boils down to the points at the end of the day. So let's discuss another tech piece that I've considered, and you are going to enjoy this, because if you think about units that nobody's talking about, let me just find the data sheet. Okay, 1 minute. So when you think about in the chat now, try to have a guess which unit I'm going to talk about. And I'll give you a clue. It's a battle line unit. And they have an aggressive counterpart that people are always prioritizing. And this one data sheet has just been sadly left behind, and nobody is looking at it. Nobody cares about it. Everybody laughs it off as a joke. And your boy here, this madman, has found the perfect combination. And it is brilliant in the Kroot detachment. Boom, someone's guessed it. Strike teams, and the hint is in the thumbnail. So, why have strike teams suddenly come to the surface? And apologies, I'm just trying to find the goddamn data sheet. And also giving you mouse scrolling ASMR. Oh, come on. Have I gone past it? Breach team. Strike team. There we go. Right then. So, straight to it. Suppression volley. In your shooting phase, after this unit has shot, select one enemy infantry unit hit by one or more of those attacks. Until the start of your next turn, while this unit is on the battlefield, that enemy unit is suppressed. A unit is suppressed each time a model in that unit makes an attack. Subtract 1 from the hit roll. So, think about that. An attack. not just from shooting, an attack. So even in combat. So what you can do, your ethereal can go in the strike team, because why wouldn't you? You can put your ethereal and the strike team in strat reserve and still generate yourself a CP on a 4+, because you can use your command phase abilities off the board. And then when you need to kind of go in for an attack, you can bring the strike teams in. You could even split fire 3 shots, like 3, 3, and then 4 at 3 different infantry units, and just go, now which one do I need to suppress? And you could even do 2 strike teams being able to come on and then do that to help the Kroot out. Now there is a key thing here to remember. It says whilst the unit is on the battlefield. So you do it in your turn. So then in your combat phase, they're going to be -1 to hit you. And then in their turn, they're going to be -1 to hit you in shooting and in combat, providing that your strike team is still alive. The feel no pain from the ethereal of 5+ will help keep them alive, and the guardian drone at -1 to wound. But you could also do it in such a way where you can just reveal 2 or 3 or 4 strike teams out of a building, shoot, then when they shoot you with the first activation, pull those, and then they're hidden behind some terrain, and then they can't kill them unless they've got indirect. But indirect is not really optimal against them because the guardian drone, plus obviously cover, and obviously the 5 up feel no pain. So that means that you can just instantly go, you're -1 to hit in both shooting and combat, which will help your Kroot survivability out. Now, let's get on to the angry guerrillas, the Kroot Rampagers. Kroot Rampagers do not have stealth. So when you bring in the suppression volley from the strike teams, you're effectively picking an infantry unit, and when they try and shoot the Rampagers, they're going to be -1 to hit, but also in combat as well. And that's the key thing. So you can layer all these debuffs by positioning units correctly, and then really giving you the best chance of success with the Rampagers. So what makes the Rampagers good in the Kroot detachment is the fact that you can lone up them. Now let's dissect what I'm thinking. So Rampagers, you can be deployed on the board. Because your redeploys happen with the Trail Shapers, you can redeploy after knowing who's going first or second. So you can have them on the board, and if you go first, you can yeet a unit up, and then if they want to shoot them, you can lone up them. And if you've got that CP from the ethereal, bish bash bosh, there we go. I've got Rampagers out in the open, don't really care about terrain because that's one of their downfalls, you have to move around the terrain. And therefore you can just kind of go, well, I'm out in the open, don't really care, I can lone up them, you're not going to shoot me, stay out of your threat range and I'm coming at you. The other thing about Rampagers is that they have, let me find the data sheet. Here we go. Sexy guerrillas. Love them. So they have Kroot pistols and hunting javelins, so they're assault. So in the early stages of the game, they can kind of advance, do actions for you, and then lone ops. They can sit on objectives and go, I'm cleansing, and then come at me and then I'll punch you in the face. Their Kroot line breakers ability is super powerful. And they basically, for each model that makes engagement range, they do D3 mortal wounds on a 4+ for each model. So in an optimal scenario, you get all 6 in, statistically 3 of them are going to get 4+. God forbid if you roll more than that, it could be absolutely horrendous. And then that can trigger making them below half strength as well, if you've shot them with other stuff and combined fire to make sure that happens. And if you shoot them with a lone spear, then that Rampager unit is doing 24 attacks, strength 6, AP 1, 2 damage, re-rolling everything for hits, so you just fish for the sustained. So you hit on 2, so you might as well re-roll anything that's not a 6. And you're also then potentially going to be +1 to wound as well. Now, as it stands, with all the attacks that you see on the melee weapons, with taking 1 or 2 wounds off a Catan from the shooting, you will absolutely kill a Catan in one go. You can go into wraiths and do considerable damage, and you can even hit things like Bulgrin really hard, and with all the shooting and the combat and the mortal wounds, kill the Bulgrin. So they are absolute line breakers. And then look at the stats. T6, 5 wounds. And if you suppression fired the infantry units that are shooting, they're going to be -1 to hit. The heavy bolters are winning you on 5s. And then you got a 5 up invuln, 6 up in combat. But obviously you can put the -1 to hit in both shooting and combat if you made suppression volley happen with your strike teams. So when you layer all these buffs up, this unit is super powerful. Let's get on to the controversy. Okay? So if you look at Rampager's fists, yeah, they have the extra attack ability. So let me just load up something. 1 minute. If I get rid of that. 1 minute. Web page. PDF. So extra attacks. So the extra attacks ability, weapons with extra attacks in their profile are known as extra attack weapons. Each time the bearer of such a weapon fights, it can make attacks with that weapon in addition to the one it chooses to fight with. The number of attacks made with an extra attack weapon cannot be modified by other rules. The bearer can attack with this weapon in addition to any other weapons it makes attacks with. So what this basically means, I'm going to read you out a clear description of what I'm getting at here, and this is done by our amazing rules guy in our Discord. It's basically says here, extra attacks rule in full states, what I've just read out. So weapons with extra attacks in their profile are known as extra attack weapons. Each time the bearer of such a weapon fights, it can make attacks with that weapon in addition to the one it chooses to fight with. The number of attacks made with an extra attack weapons cannot be modified by other rules. Breaking it down, it can make attacks with that weapon, i.e. the weapon with additional attacks ability, the fists in this case, in addition to the one it chooses to fight with. So whichever weapon chosen normally in the fights phase, so we select the fists normally and the extra attacks triggers. And when we make attacks with the extra attack weapon in addition to our chosen weapon, the caveat is in the bullet points, which aren't actually rules text but just a summary state. The bearer can attack with this weapon in addition to any other weapons it can make attacks with. So basically, in short, rather than doing the normal attacks with the guys on top, aka the hunting blades, you basically, as rules as written, choose the Rampager fists and then go and use them again. That's raw ruling. So rules as written. Obviously it's not intended, and I want to make that extremely clear. This is not intended. But as it stands, rather than doing 24 attacks with the Rampager's fists and then, if you had a unit of 6, 18 with the hunting blades, you could just choose to do the 24 attacks twice, which will be 48 strength 6, AP 1, 2 damage attacks. So that is ridiculous. And let me make this clear, that is ridiculous. Because it says, as written as the rule, with the weapon in addition to the one it chooses to fight with. Now, what we've done is, I want to also state that I'm a firm believer in a healthy game, and I don't like weird interactions that clearly go against rules as intended. But the problem for TOs when you think about rules as intended is it's obviously got emotion behind it or can be biased. Whereas rules as written, it's clean cut, so TOs can easily kind of go, well, this is the raw ruling, and therefore that is how it is. Then for rules as intended, what they do is they look at other cases of similar sorts of interactions, and as long as there's something that kind of can be proved that it's not going to work that way because another rule is very similar, then they can use that to actually turn around and go, well, actually, no, that's not the case. We're going to stand by this rather than go with raw. But we've had Blood Crushers in the past, or Tyranids with like Scything Talons having extra attacks that can do it. And there's also interactions like, the firing deck on Impulsors with Eliminators, where the Eliminators get out, shoot, fire and fade into the vehicle, and then the vehicle can then shoot the Eliminators' guns because it's a firing deck. These little things are like kind of loopholes in the game. So what I've done, and with the help of rule guys and a good community around me, is I've submitted it to the WTC rulings team, and they're debating it currently. And I genuinely think that, Rampagers are good anyway, and I've done all the maths and these combos just on base stat lines that we're seeing, not of this hypothetical, I can do, 48 attacks rather than 24, because if that's the case, I get, basically, if I take 12 Rampagers, I'm effectively getting 24 Rampagers, and that just breaks the game. Honestly, Angry Gorilla's going in Hulk smashing people. As fun as it is, right? Rules as written now allow you to do it, but rules as intended, it's going to create some awkward moments at tournament tables where TOs will get involved, you'll waste time on the clock, it'll frustrate TOs as well because they have to do extra work, and I don't think that's healthy for the game. So even though as it stands we can do it, it doesn't feel right. But there are lots of things in the game that don't feel right, so where do you draw the line? So use it with an air of caution, and I do think once we get the ruling back as well and it starts to hit the circuit, then it's going to be ruled against, which I think is good. But I do honestly really rate the Rampagers anyway. So, like I said, the combination of Rampagers with strike teams really give you durability. And another thing that I really like about Rampagers is you can really pull off some interesting kind of combinations when it comes to the charge phase and then going into the pile in and consolidate. So imagine a scene where a rhino's on a couple of wounds because you've chipped away at it. You do the line breaker ability to kill it on the mortals, then the unit falls out of the transport, and because you've declared a charge, you are eligible to pile in. So then you could pile in and then start to attack the units that's fallen out of a transport. So if you plan this, you can easily pull off some really interesting kind of maneuvers in the combat phase to punish your opponent. So let's talk about how we're going to use these Rampagers. Okay, so we've already established that you can have them on the board and loan up them and scout move them and get them into an aggressive position without any fear of being shot back. But I like the ability to potentially rapid ingress these bad boys. And if you look at the Tau stuff, then stealth suits. So stealth suits give you a free rapid ingress. So you can have Rampagers come on from the side of the board, and you've got the CP from your ethereal, and you could go loan up. And then when they've pushed out at you, you've suddenly got a unit of 6 Rampagers there that then can then move 7 and then charge. And because you rapid ingress, you're going to be close to the enemy, and therefore you're going to be able to get easier charges off. Therefore being able to get more potential chance of doing mortal wounds. And if you are flush on CP, you can always use the grenade strat as well. So there's lots and lots of combinations you can do with them. So stealth suits plus Rampagers plus strike teams is the spicy little kind of package that I put together. And I'm really looking forward to using it. Now, I am keeping an eye on the chat. I've just seen Kyle say, yeah, they've ruled against it. I have got a couple of messages that I'm looking at now. I've just not had a chance to look at them. And I think, obviously, one of the refs has gotten back to me. And all I can see, it says, in brackets, sad for Kroot players indeed, with a laughing emoji. So I do think it's going to get FAQ'd. Or it's basically already been ruled against in WTC, which is a shame. But like I said at the very start of this call, is it meant to be that way? No. But rules as written, yes. So hopefully, obviously, GW will amend it in an FAQ. So at least we know that WTC have ruled it that way. But obviously, the rest of the organisations need to actually catch up. Otherwise, it is going to be legal. So, What do we think? What do we think about the combination that I've talked about with the Rampagers and Strike teams? Do we like it? Any questions? So the ruling of the Warshaper using Join the Hunt for free on its destroyed squad. Right, okay, so Join the Hunt. There's a similar ability out there with Ursula Creed in Guard, which she has an aura of if dies within 12, you can spend that stratagem for free. But because she's not leading the unit, it's an aura, and they said no. But the weird interaction is a Kroot Shaper's, it's not an aura ability, he's just leading the unit. Now, my understanding is that you'd have to kill the Kroot unit and not the character, and then he can use it, because you're meant to slow roll every dice and blah blah blah. But it needs FAQing, because being able to bring back a Kroot unit for 2 CP for free, and you could do it again on another unit, again, that just seems too powerful. Basically, what? 40 Kroot die and you spent 2 CP and you bring them back? Come on. So I personally, that's why I didn't take it to this event. So I chose not to. I'm not going to say be that person, because that kind of infers that you're a win at all cost person, and you're not. It's just we're in this like loophole of like, can we please have an answer? Again, the whole point of this is to bring things to light, because me personally, I'm sick and tired of having these interactions where it doesn't feel right, but then you can't really judge someone for using it because it's rules as written. I think GW are getting better at it, and I hope that they clear up lots of these interactions in the game just to keep it clean. And I really feel for TOs, because they're having to make decisions on their own back when it should just be provided in an ideal world by the rules team. So for me, I'm not going to be using it, because if you get too used to using rules like this, then when it gets taken away, you either lose faith or your whole strategy falls apart. So I try and always tread a fine line between raw and rye, and I would encourage you to do the same. And look, within an hour or two of just bringing this, it's been going on in my Discord for I think since early hours of last night. And then within today, I decided to do this video and talk about Rampagers, and had it submitted to WTC for a ruling for the Rampagers thing, and already within less than 24 hours, we've got it ruled against by the World Team Championship ref team, and I think that's amazing, because if every rule like that was, I suppose, dealt with in this way, then it'd be a much cleaner game to be playing. So anyway, that's besides the point. What am I drinking? Actually, just orange Lucasade, mate. I'm just wired from all this Kroot shenanigans. What are your thoughts about tucking an ethereal into Kroot list? Well, I did actually touch on that just before, and I actually think the ethereal gives you that free CP, and I'm not usually a fan of ethereals. In truth be told, I hate them, just because I'm a Farsight fanboy, and now I'm a Kroot Shaper lover. So I'm not a huge fan of them personally, but the value of getting extra CP in this Kroot detachment is way too good. It's way too good to pass up on. So I genuinely think that 1 to 2 ethereals in the Kroot detachment are going to be a staple, just to keep that CP train alive, because you want to actually do fixed secondaries with this list because of deploy teleporters and cleanse being very easy. But then obviously the reveals today about the new secondaries and missions that are coming in a couple of months, I think Kroot are going to be amazing at this. So honestly, it's really good to see the Kroot chickens get some love, and honestly, I couldn't be happier with the flexibility that our detachments have. And finally, I get a chance to use all of my Kroot that I've had, since lockdown, because a mate did a Kroot army for himself and has 300 odd Kroot, and now I've got them, and I can actually use them competitively. It's phenomenal. So, do you think people will or are overlooking the Kroot? Let me show you something. Give me 1 second while I just sort out my OBS. So you should all be able to see something here that is the stat check data. And if you remember one of my first videos, I did say that in my personal opinion, the Kroot detachment was the strongest. And then I said, like, kind of Kion and Montcar are going to fluctuate between each other. And then the Retaliation Cadre is going to be the most challenging one because it really it rewards perfection, but it's penalised by not being perfect in every decision. So they're going to be... I do think every one of the detachments is going to have its place in the meta, but I genuinely think that the Kroot detachment is the strongest by far. And your boy goes to an event, is the only person to be running Kroot on this data from this weekend, and I've put the Kroot Hunting Pack at 80% win rate. Now, granted, guys, there's only 5 games recorded, and those are all mine, but yeah, okay, so Tau, I've gone down to 49%, and let it load up. So the win rate. Give me 1 second. So basically, let's have a look. 1 minute. Yeah, Montcar, 50%, 8 games played. Kion, 48, 148 games played. And then the Retaliation Cad at 44, 9 games played. Just going to do a selfless plug. And then 80% recruit. So, if you look at the meta matchup overview over on the stat check, Tau have moved in 49% of 170 games played and at 49% win rate. And then if you have a look at the win rate peer versus peer, usually Tau, and we go through this a lot in our Chassel memberships in the Discord because we review the meta constantly and we look at, you know, what you're going to have to prep for when you go to events. The mid-table menaces, the overtuned factions, and some of the armies that may be experienced pilot required. So then if people are running armies that are, you know, an experienced pilot is required, then they're going to be pretty good at using the faction. So Tau usually exists in, they have done in the past, of either struggling, experienced pilot required, or then when some bullshit detachment like last time when we got an Montcar with all the indirect airbursts and SMS, we went straight to overtuned. So for the first time we were kind of sitting right bang in the balance, but now we're moving into a mid-table menace, but I think it's too early to make any assumptions yet because it's a volatile meta right now. But the Kroot detachment, people aren't predicting it, so therefore you've got that surprise element. And I obviously have proven that with turning up with Angry Chickens, and people are like, what the hell does this do, Kyle? And they're going, let me show you. So, yeah, really interesting data, and I'm going to be keeping an eye on that over the next coming months. So, let me just catch up with chat. Yeah, I do think the Rampagers are good. I genuinely think, obviously, if we were allowed to do the stupid, you know, extra attacks twice, then you just take 2 units of them and be done with it. But I think the Rampagers solve a problem that we usually struggle with, which is some durable unit being pushed up and that goes, I'm coming for you next turn. So you either have to screen and then shoot me, and if I'm durable, like Wraiths, for example, they can just bring stuff back, or they can loan up or reactive move. Having something to go in and brawl, and the Rampagers do this extremely well. As long as you are being able to keep them alive from incoming damage so that when they do connect, they do the damage, hence why in the Kroot detachment, being able to, you know, bring them in by rapid ingress and then loan up them is the delivery mechanism that you need to make this unit as efficient as possible. So you've got to think past what you see on the data sheet and think more, alright, if I do X, Y, and Z, this buff, this debuff, this, and this, then this unit becomes a powerhouse. And that's the way I've looked at Rampagers. Like I said, -1 from strike teams, that's a cute little addition, but mainly the stealth suits doing homing beacons plus the lone spear shooting them. You put another couple of shots in there, whether it be your supporting fire riptides or whatever else you take in, and then you just go, hello, I'm hitting on 2s with full rerolls, and I'm going to beat you up real good. And it provides that bully unit that the Kroot need, because from my experience in those games, I was playing a Kion style with my Kroot, but I was finding that I had to retreat in some areas because they were just too aggressive. But having a Rampager can go in there, deal with that threat whilst my army gets a bit of breathing space to go and score primaries easy or get my secondaries. So it's a delay tactic, but a very potent delaying tactic because it can actually do damage. So I really, really do rate these Rampagers, so do not overlook them. Really consider them. Maybe 1 unit's enough. Maybe you want to go 2. Obviously, they're quite expensive to buy, and if you've got the hunting packs and you've got 2 of the boxes like I did, you've got enough to field 1 unit. And honestly, I really like them, and it's good to see new units being used, because it'd be a real shame, I was thinking, that these Rampagers, the gorgeous models, and I can't use them because they're not very competitive, and when I've looked a bit deeper and then had my experience from running the Kroot Hunting Pack, I actually thought, you know what, yeah, these are good. These are good. So, yeah, so the stealth suits, you know, guiding for the reroll 1s to hit and 1s to wound is nice. How often do we put Kroot in strat reserve? It's just mainly redeploys, but I actually didn't need to. But the Rampagers, I would definitely think about that, because obviously the whole tactic is have them on the board, and if I go first, I might not need to. But if I'm going second and I want to kind of just put them on the board ready for a cheeky rapid ingress, then of course I will do with the Trail Shapers. Yeah, the Warshaper could be useful just as an annoying assassin, since it can revive itself for free and give your whole army extra AP from... Okay, so something to note about this, though. One of the lovely enhancements, the root carved weapons that give you the devastating wounds and precision. If you had it on that character, because the nice little combo that I've been talking about is you put the root carved weapons. He's going to have D3, I think it's D3 plus 1 shots, I think. Just double check. If I can get to the data sheet quick enough. Let's have a look. Come on. Yeah, the dart bow and tri-blade. So D3 plus 1 shots. Strength 4, AP 2. Sorry, AP 0, damage 2. And then when you give it the root carved weapons, it gets the precision and the devastating wounds. And it's anti-infantry. So you can basically go in and kind of one-shot a Wraith Technomancer. But if you do spend 2 CP on bringing him back, then you don't come back with your enhancement because it's a new unit. So, yeah, it is classed as a new unit. It's the same with the Firestalkers getting killed. They don't then get the ability to do their lethal and precision again. So if you put a Warshaper with that enhancement into a Firestalker unit, then the whole unit has precision and lethal against that target. So if you assumed that you targeted a unit of Wraiths with a Technomancer in, and he was in it, that whole unit's just going bop, 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 dead Technomancer. Thank you very much, thanks for playing. And that unit no longer has a 5-up Feel No Pain. How does Kroot fare if people are prepping for the Orc Menace? This absolutely trashes the Orc Menace, especially Green Tide. Here's 2 models at no deep strike within 12. Okay, cool, so you're not jumping at me. And yeah, I'm just going to be out in the open because you've not really got any shooting. So yeah, sucks to be you. And then obviously with the Rampagers would go in and really hurt Orc boys. So I do think it's a good one to tackle the Green Tide. The problem is with when this codex written, Sean, with the Warshaper bringing back units, is that when this codex was written, like a lot of them, they recently changed the whole commentary thing about you can only do it, the bringing back on battle tactic only. And the problem with battle tactic is that there are assassins out there, like the Caledius assassin, that can just make you vect, basically, so increase the CP costs. So I just think there's a bit of a weird overlap of when they wrote the rules and what they've done to change it since. So that just needs an FAQ treatment. Retaliation Cadre, I'm going to be doing videos on the other detachments, so I'm not going to go too much into detail, but in the Retaliation Cadre, the nerfs to the Sunforges, meh. Look, the Star Scythe are cheap as chips. They've got plenty of potent damage coming out of them, and also the Riptides are still decent for 180 points, and Ghost Keel staying at 160 is just golden. So the Retaliation Cadre can definitely have a really nice build to it, but I just wouldn't really bank on Sunforges. I really rate using Hammerhead still in all detachments. Yes, the root carved weapon is bearer only, but the Farstalkers have an ability at the beginning of the game. You choose a unit, and against that unit, the Farstalker unit has precision and lethal. So you stack them both together because obviously the Warshaper can join a unit of Farstalkers, and then they're both going to be doing that against that target. And Join the Hunt doesn't return the characters. That is correct, it doesn't. But it says Kroot infantry model. So basically, if you just had a Warshaper on his own, you could bring back a Warshaper. No, the enhancements won't, because it's not an identical unit. It's a new unit. Because technically it's not the same unit, it's a new unit of the same type. It's not a brand new, it's not a replica. Well, it is, sorry, that was bad wording. It's a replacement unit, it's not the same unit. It's really convoluted. So the Farstalkers at the start of the battle, select one unit from your opponent's army. Sorry, I just have to move the thing. Okay, at the start of the battle, select one unit from your opponent's army. Each time a model in this unit makes an attack that targets that unit, that attack has the lethal and precision abilities. So it's that unit. And then when you bring back a Farstalker unit, because this is done at the start of the battle, and it's not the same unit, it wouldn't get it. So I hope this stream is kind of really kind of like lit up a fire with the Kroot detachment. I know using it has definitely made me respect them even more than I already did. And I think there's plenty more builds to be had. I've been playing around with lots of different builds I won't be giving away because I'm practicing for teams tournaments coming up. But look guys, like this is the kind of stuff that I really enjoy doing. I enjoy kind of bringing kind of new light to certain units and figuring out different combos because I like problem solving. And I really think this Kroot detachment and all the rest of the detachments have got some really nice combinations and tactics and stratagems you can build a list around. So we've now got a bigger toolbox than we did in Index. So I think that if you are maybe feeling a little bit deflated by some of the changes like I mentioned on the other video about new points with Tetras going and various things going up, and I know we've taken a little bit of a hit on our win rate, but that's to be expected. But a lot of armies have done so, and a few armies have kind of, you know, gone straight to the top, which is just the nature of the game. So stay positive, start to think outside the box, and if you do want to join a like-minded community, you know where the links are in the chat and the description here. There's the Puretide Program. You can join the community for free, and if you are thinking about joining actually the paid subscriptions, I've got a few extra things that will excite you. The community voted on. I've got a spare copy of the limited edition codex plus the cards, and I've given it as a giveaway for any kind of level of subscriber from paid subscribers, so Pathfinder, Shaspray and Shasel, and it's to the end of May. And the community said I should sign it, and now, you know, I'm a bit modest. I was like, really? And they're like, no, sign it. So you get a basically limited edition codex from me, and the only stipulation is that you come part of the Discord, you have a couple of days there, whatever it may be, and then you leave a review on the website. So obviously it's a month-by-month subscription. There's no contract to it, and if you really want to join and see what I'm about, we do live calls. We have a really healthy community, interactive, no politics, and it's all good fun. So if you do want to check it out, check out the link in the description. And if not, well then do your thing for me, and like, comment, subscribe, and help the algorithm of my YouTube channel, because I really, really appreciate it. So you're welcome. I'm just catching up on chat now. I've had my list with maxed out Rampagers since the Codex was announced. My man, amazing. Announced, and I'm honestly shocked. I've seen no list with them, even in casuals. I know, right? And I love that the fact that you just went, look, I love the models, I'm going to take them. Because this is the whole thing. Even I get inspiration from other people that are trying new stuff, because we're in a phase of just trying out anything we can. There's no win list for everything. And, even like the likes of myself and Richard Segan, we're trying stuff. There's plenty of other top tile players out there that are going to be experimenting, and that's the exciting thing about 40k. It's not just take this one list for 4 months and it's boring. It never gets stale. There's constantly changes to the rules. Codexes are coming out thick and thin. So one thing right now might not be competitive, but in a week's time, a day time, 20 minutes, half an hour, it could suddenly be super good again. So if you are competitively minded, great. Go for the different efficiencies and combos you can. If you're having fun with your games, have fun with your games. But the inevitability for me is that if you are really good at your craft and the units that you're practicing with, then that scares me a hell of a lot more than somebody picking up a meta list. So, you do you, as they say. And honestly, if there's other combinations that you found and that you like using, put it in the comments. I'm sure everybody else will like to hear it too. Yeah, I mean, obviously, GW prices are madness. The Rampagers are expensive, but even a unit of 3, it's still fun, and they can still do decent damage. So, like I said, lots of different combos. What do you think about balance with the main Tau units? I feel it needs the Riptide, Ghost Guild, Hammerhead. What's a decent ratio? Well, when you hear me talk about lists, I always go with a balanced approach. I always go with okay, so what am I trying to achieve here with the overall list composition? Okay, so I need to tackle primary. I need to have that as obviously a primary, and then I think about what units are going to be doing secondaries, and then I think about damage as a tertiary. So then I think about, well, what's going on in the meta? So I analyze, stat check, analyze what's going on with the YouTube videos and people talking about different combos, and then I tailor my choices around how the meta is evolving. And right now it's kind of like, who bloody knows what's going on? So it's a troubling time for like players like me, or that I need to analyze the data and come up with solutions. But also it's extremely exciting at the same time. But I think the good ratio at the moment is kind of like 2s of everything when it comes to damage. So I took in my list, actually, I forgot to mention, I took 1 Breacher Fish, which didn't do anything for me, so I've kind of cut that out. But the, just having kind of like a ratio of like, okay, well, I want 2 Hammerheads to cover 2 firing lanes. I want 2 Riptides to cover 2 firing lanes, and then I've got them in pairs, I've got redundancy. I find that that's always a really good technique to use when the meta is so volatile. And you can't go wrong with that. And then as the meta evolves, you can kind of start to trade out pieces that maybe are not needed anymore. But you're always going to need screens. You're always going to need secondary scorers. You're always going to need mission play and all that kind of stuff. So that always remains constant. The damage dealing aspects of lists ebb and flow. And one thing I always like to do is I like to build a toolbox full of as many tools as possible, because I'd rather, have them and not need them than not have them and need them. Is the meta headed to Donkey Kong Country? Yes. I would love it. I'd love it after here. It's just like the Kroot Hunting Pack are just constantly smashing it out there, and then people are having success stories with angry gorillas. That scene out of like Avengers where, Hulk is just grabbing Loki and just smashing him constantly. That's how I envision Krootox is hitting the meta, and I want you guys to go and do that, because I can't wait. So, Donkey Kong Country, here we go. I think Riptide's Fire Knives underperformed. I mean, it depends on your meta, doesn't it, buddy? Like, it for me, when I have tested these units, it all boils down to how you are utilising them and what positions you're putting them in. And what you're expecting them to do. So if you expect a standard Fire Knife without any extra AP buff to go and hurt 2-up saves, then you're going to be massively disappointed. But if you're picking off their trading pieces with this Fire Knife, especially in Retaliation Cadre going up and down with the Star Flare system, then they're going to overperform because they're going to be doing the task that you've set them out to do. So I think with like Riptides and, just to give the example of what you've quoted, Riptides and Fire Knives, it's like, ask yourself, what are you expecting them to do? And then how are you setting them up to do that task? For me, like my Riptides have, in that tournament, every game apart from one, they were performing. And then in the T-Suns, I had a phase where I could have killed 3 units of rubrics plus characters. I ended up killing 4 rubrics and not the character because my Riptides and Hammerheads just decided to roll 1s. Fine, it happens. Dice rolls can happen in games. That's the nature of the game itself. But the more you leave, the more things that you set up that are not down to chance, aka, scoring points, then the better it is for your overall game. And I always try to preach about never leaving things up to chance. So if you are wanting to kill said unit in front, what if you don't kill it? And if it's a combat unit, if it hits your lines, then it's game over. Then I always set up a screen in front just in case they don't die. So it's little things like that that can really kind of elevate your gameplay and performance if you just start to think, leave nothing to chance, and if something does die as I want it to, then that is a bonus rather than it needs to happen. Some moments in the game, you really do need the luck to come your way, but if you're setting up all these fail-safes, then obviously it's going to assist you in the overall plan of winning the game by points. What's for dinner? Well, there's only one answer to that. Chicken. Winner, winner, chicken dinner, right? Right, so I'm going to call it a night because we've been going for an hour and 20 minutes. Thank you so much for joining. And obviously for me, thank you for all the comments. It really kind of makes this live experience more enjoyable for me because I've only recently started doing this and I'm still getting used to managing all the different boxes and PDFs and stuff like that, so please bear with me if it's been a bit clunky. But thank you so much for your support, and I'm going to bid you all a good day and good night. So thanks very much, guys. Take care.